So this week we've also got some information from Briefcase, and it's an interesting moment in AI bookkeeping, and the contrast really couldn't be sharper. So this week, Briefcase rolled out something deceptively simple, and that's letting users add natural language context when they upload documents. So, for example, a short note or comment like client entertainment or staff meal split across projects, and the system uses that intent to categorize, split lines, and apply tracking codes correctly. Now, why does this matter? Well, because bookkeeping isn't necessarily a maths problem, it's more of a context problem. And that's where a lot of AI accountant stories quietly fall apart. At the same time, we've just seen other players in the space enter a distressed sale and new AI launch into the same space. There's big ambition and heavier AI claims, but real-world accounting depends on nuance, exceptions, and human intent that models don't magically infer. But what Briefcase is doing feels slightly different. It's not replacing the accountant or the client. It appears to be tightening the feedback loop between them. Now, context is captured at source when the human still remembers why the transaction happened. And that's such a simple solution, but can make such a huge difference. I think that's where the subtle lesson is here. AI players that listen tend to survive longer than AI that declares autonomy too early. In this market, progress looks like fully autonomous bookkeeping and more like fewer follow-up emails, fewer miscodes, and systems that learn with users, not instead of them. So I think this is super interesting. I think it's going to be really, really useful for those that are kind of up to speed with the tech and they understand why they're using it, and they want to try and close that gap with communication with themselves and the accountants, who will come back and say, yeah, but what was this for exactly? Which project does it belong to? And so on. However, in my opinion, that's a very small segment of the market. The majority, they could write things of what it is and try to be really clever about it and code things when they don't actually understand where they should be coding it to, which could end up giving a hell of a lot more work for the accountant. I can see both sides of the coin, but the principle I think is absolutely amazing. And again, I think this will be something that people need to get used to. They'll be making mistakes, learning from them. Some will need to not get involved, and some will just be trained in, how to make those prompts. Can we call them prompts? Or clearer.
Can I ask about this for a moment in terms of where it fits in? And you were just saying that, look, we're seeing some things like falter in the industry where it comes to how AI or like the capture and how this will impact those companies. Does Briefcase go far enough in the workflow to be meaningful in its own right and stand up to its contemporaries, or are we also seeing that maybe this solves one small part, which at some point the bigger players will then end up extending to that as well? And so I'm just curious here that, like, does it, in its own right, does it need to continue building out more of our workflow to stay meaningful, relevant, and also alive at this time?
Well, it's small, consistent changes that make a big difference, right? So I think it's an important change. But do I think other players will kind of get there quickly? They may do. They may not see it as something that's super important, and that could be an advantage for them because it could make a lot of difference. But yeah, I do think they need to keep going and, as you say, extend that workflow to become super useful so people can't live without it, essentially.